Recently, we talked with the Democratic candidate for the 62nd State House race, Jim Hadsma, and we have his opponent, I think maybe his only opponent. We really don't know yet, but I think it will probably be his only opponent, Republican Dave Morgan. And good morning to you, Dave. It's good to see you.
Hi, Tim. Great to be here.
So far, anybody else announced for that race?
No.
Okay, so you're the Republican candidate?
Yep.
And Jim Hadsma is the Democratic candidate?
That's correct.
And the district, I tell people it's basically the city of Battle Creek and parts of Calhoun County, but it's kind of the northern. How would you describe it?
Yeah, you have the city of Battle Creek. It goes all the way over to Albion. You have Bedford Township, Clarence Township, Convis, Lee, Penfield, and the city of Springfield.
And then underneath that district, kind of in a horseshoe, is the 63rd that Dave Matern represents currently.
Right, Dave Matern, and that goes, Calhoun County all the way over to Kalamazoo. So when you talk about gerrymandering, this might be a good example of lines that may not make total sense. But
I suppose, and, Matern's district, I think, has traditionally leaned Republican, and it's an easier race. You've got a harder race. I think the 62nd is traditionally could go either way.
Yeah, the 62nd leans a little bit on the Democratic side, but as we've seen with Dr. Bison, who's our current state rep, and he's done a wonderful job. He's Republican, and he won twice.
And in case you're wondering, Dr. Bison will be term limited and will be moving to run for the state Senate. The seat currently held by Mike Knopfs, who also is being term limited. How do you like that term limit thing?
I like term limits, and the reason for that, we have so many qualified people. Now, every candidate wants you to believe that they're the only ones that could possibly do the job, but in all reality, in the Battle Creek, Albion area, we have so many people that are qualified that could make a difference, and I don't see a problem with term limits and bringing new people into the mix.
Well, the big argument against it is that you end up with people who have non-elected jobs with a little too much clout in Lansing, and I'm talking about the assistants and the lobbyists and the chiefs of staff who, aren't elected to anything. They just get a job every 2 or 4 years with somebody else, and they can wield a little extra power there.
Yeah, lobbyists do. That's their job. They're going to talk about their issues. Pretty much every industry has a lobbyist representing them. In a lot of ways, too, lobbyists are good because there's no candidate that's an expert on any issue or every issue. And so when you can bring people in that do have knowledge, and in my case, my plan would be absolutely surround yourself with a team of people that could talk about issues. We have, like I said, a lot of great people in town, business owners, single-family parents. Bring them into the mix, get their perspective, and go from there.
You talked about, different specialties. People, Dr. Bison obviously has addressed some medical issues, prescriptions, and other things that are kind of related to his field as a doctor. I talked to Jim Hadsma, and he mentioned, maybe some labor issues and some wage issues and some of those kind of things that he sort of specialized in his other job. What are some of the areas that you feel that Dave Morgan would really want to concentrate on and could really be an asset to the Michigan legislature?
Well, I think what I bring to the table is, I've been in both parties. I don't hide that, and I think that's a plus. I know I'll probably be attacked by some, but I think it shows bipartisanship in a big way. And I understand the issues on both sides. And one of the things is I'm the legislative rep for the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Teamsters. So when we talk about labor, I sit at the table now for labor, and I was elected as a Republican. So unions, our union membership, we look for representation. We really don't care about D's or R's. And there's a lot of important issues in that category, safety issues, wage issues, that I can bring to the table on the Republican side. Infrastructure would be probably one of the highest priorities. I was a manager for Amtrak for 13 years. I was in charge of transportation from California to Texas for about 6 years. And then I had Chicago to Battle Creek for about 6-7 years here.
Now, you brought up the fact that you used to be a member of the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
What caused you to switch to the Republican Party?
Well, it wasn't, I don't know. The issues, both parties have issues. I've always been conservative, more so, especially when it comes to business, government spending, government growth. When I look at the Republican side, there's some wonderful people. We look at Matt Saxton, who's our sheriff. Steve Frisbee's a great commissioner out in Penfield. Dave Gilbert, our prosecuting attorney. It's just a great group of people. And I was the chair of the Democratic Party here, and I was elected unanimously. And I just look at it like you can't be so locked into a party that you forget what your priorities and where your integrity is. And I'm happy. A lot of people have switched. We have Terrace Todd. He was a 5-term county commissioner on the Democratic side. He switched too. For me, it was about local issues. And I made the switch. I'm glad I did. They're wonderful people. I've watched great things happen.
Do you think, now you mentioned, your work with labor, and do you think that, it used to be they did care if it was an R or a D, and labor unions like the Teamsters and the AFL-CIO, they'd never vote for a Republican. They'd never support a Republican. They were always Democrat, even though the rank and file may have had a few issues that didn't gel with that. Do you think that's changing?
Oh, it's absolutely changing. We did a poll. I was up at a regional meeting in Chicago 2 years ago, and our poll for President Trump was about 50-50. Mm-hmm. So what we're seeing is people need to be more focused on what's best for their families, for their kids. Don't worry about the D's and R's. One letter isn't going to save you or hurt you. It's the person in the office that's going to make the difference.
Dave Morgan is with us. He is the Republican candidate for the 62nd House District. I mentioned that Dr. John Bison, who's the current incumbent, was term limited, and Nico reminded me that it's 3 terms in the State House.
Correct.
3 terms of 2 years each. So he's not term limited. He could serve another term. But Mike Knopf has already served 2 4-year terms in the state Senate, so he is term limited. That seat will be open. And so Dr. John Bison has chosen to run for the state Senate. That creates an opening. And you're the guy so far for the Republicans. You mentioned that you work with the Teamsters and have in the past. Have they come out? Have they said, have they offered any support at all?
Well, absolutely. I've already received the endorsement of the Brotherhood Locomotive Engineers, which is a Teamster division. So that's a big endorsement for a Republican to receive right away. So I'm proud of that. There's some more we'll be announcing later on.
You're the supervisor of Penfield Township. I don't know if I mentioned that. I probably should have when I introduced you. That's your current job. And is that your first job in politics?
It is, but I've been serving in Penfield for 30 years in some capacity. Our family's been longtime residents going back to the 1800s. Morgan Road's named after my great-grandfather. Cambley School was his home. He sold that to the Cambley family in 1942. So one side of Penfield or Morgan Road was a horse farm. The other side was a dairy farm. So we go way back. We have strong roots in the community. And I've seen Battle Creek the best of times and the worst of times at different points in my life. And we certainly have a lot of opportunity here for our kids to stay here and grow and for business to come and grow.
Tell us, what is entailed in your current job as Penfield Township Supervisor, and what do you do, and how does that prepare you for more political positions such as the State House?
Well, as a township supervisor, and we have 3 good ones, I feel, here. I'll give myself a little credit, but Tim Hill over in Emmett does a wonderful job. Adam Heichel over in Bedford's doing a great job. As a township supervisor and all of our employees at the township, we deal daily with our residents on just about every issue you can think of, from roads to taxes to ordinances, different ordinances that we may have in our townships. And so it's quite entailed, and you have a face-to-face with many people all the time. You know, you go to a restaurant, you're talking about issues in the township. Mm-hmm. It's quite intriguing, and it's a great opportunity if anybody would like to run.
My mother was a township clerk for more than 30 years, so I know kind of what a supervisor does, and heard a lot about it over the years. In fact, I used to work part-time for the township too, but also the other part of that is assessing. How does that work?
Well, yeah, we have an assessor that'll assess our properties. And another thing about township government is it's really the closest form of government to the people, which makes it very important. And revenue sharing has been cut quite a bit, which has caused more taxation from the bottom up, and we need to fix that in Lansing too.
So that gives you a good perspective when you go to, if you go to Lansing, that you know, you'll have kind of an inside view of how these local municipalities, you know, at the local level are having to deal with those issues.
No, absolutely, and the struggles that people face. One thing now, our taxes just went out for property taxes, and when you look on a tax bill and see all the taxes that are added on and on and on to your house, that's one thing I'm against. I think we should have the least amount of taxes on somebody's home. That's something that they absolutely need to have. You're never going to tax anybody into prosperity. So government's got to shrink a little bit, become lean, more effective, and you know, people are struggling, and I see that as a supervisor all the time. And it's really sad to go out and meet a senior citizen, or anybody for that matter, that, you know, has done the right thing in their life, tried to do what's right, but the taxes really pull them down. And
well, I think your Democratic opponent would concur. I mean, that's exactly what he's been saying. But he's said that the Republicans in Lansing have made tax changes, such as eliminating a homestead credit, that have made it even more difficult on on a lot of working people. Would you agree?
Well, I don't think that's true. I haven't found anything that would say that that's being eliminated. But also, that's one of the problems with politics, that they, and this is something that you'll see on the Democratic side now. Everything they are saying is based on the 2018 elections, and they're going to demonize just about anything the Republicans do. President Trump right now has tax reform. It's going to help 80% of the people. 15% won't be affected. 5% their taxes will go up. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think we need to be proactive, try to make the tax system the best we can for all of our families.
What else does the state need to do that you would really welcome the chance to roll up your sleeves and get involved in if you were elected?
Well, and infrastructure's a huge thing. Out in Penfield, we just finished our road project. It was put in place or started by the former township supervisor, Rob Mankey. Did a great job with that. He was a Democrat. I came in, followed him as a Republican. We finished up the road project, worked together well, even after the election, and Penfield's better off for it.
What else? What about the pollution problems that have been cropping up around our state?
Well, there's a lot of issues in the state that are cropping up all over, and we're going to be dealing with a lot of them down the road. But the way to fix just about any issue, including that one, is kind of a bipartisan approach and working together.
Yeah, so I'm kind of hearing a theme here that may well appeal to a lot of Americans who are sick and tired of the partisan bickering and nothing getting done, and extreme candidates on both sides of the fence. It sounds like you're not going to be one of those.
Well, and I, as a former person on the other side, the other party, I've walked just about every house. I've walked Democratic houses. I've talked to them. I've talked to Republicans. There's a lot of issues that we all share. We all want to be good parents, number one. I have a daughter, my daughter Jaden. She's 11 years old. Nobody's more important in my life than she is. Well, a lot of people have that same feeling about their children, and they just want to do what's right. They want to be able to have a home, live a good life. We can't demonize success, though. So the Democratic side tends to look at the successful people and try to demonize them a little bit. And I think that's not right. We should be promoting, for instance, the stock market and the tax reform. They're attacking people that receive dividends off of stocks that they purchased or they own. I would prefer teaching in schools the students how to purchase shares of stocks and let them understand how they can improve their life throughout the future. So that's the route I would take. My daughter, for instance, this Christmas, her bank account actually went over $10,000 just by saving money that she received from birthday presents, Christmas, and investing in stocks. So she has a stock portfolio at 11 years old that's probably worth more than me now.
Wow.
But she's done very well. But she understands it. And that's what we need to teach in our schools, real life situations and the way to get ahead. We don't need to demonize success. In our community, Governor Snyder, I'll just use this as an example. Here we have a community. Our community has the sitting governor in Michigan, which is pretty astounding that our community has the governor sitting. But yet, on the Democratic side, we tend to demonize the governor. And I think we should be building it up. I think if you're at Lakeview High School, the teachers should be saying, you're sitting in the same seat as the governor. You have the potential to move up, to do what you want to do and become what you want to be. So I think we need to look at things positively. But in the election cycle, we'll see. I'll probably have a commercial on me that'll have me with my arm around Putin or something, which will be utterly ridiculous. But, that's the way politics are. It tends to turn negative instead of positive. We need to focus on the positives.
And I was going to ask you, what kind of support you've gotten from the Michigan Republican Party, and I know that Jim Haadsma, your opponent, is getting good support from the Democratic Party as well. What have they said to you so far?
The Republicans?
Yeah.
Oh, they're very, very much on board. They're very supportive, and I've been supported by many Democrats. I know a lot of Democrats in Lansing, and I received a lot of calls from elected officials even that are Democrat wishing me well. So I think we see an opportunity where we can bring people together, and I think it doesn't happen very often, but I'm sure we can do it.
It's hard when those guys get involved. You get a bunch of guys who got political science degrees, which basically is a degree in mudslinging and deception.
Right.
And they're going to take whatever money they can get their hands on and put negative ads together and try to make this a smear campaign like they do everything else that they get involved in. How are you going to stay above that, or are you going to have to go with some of it?
No, we'll stay above it. I'm a United States veteran, Air Force veteran, served out at the Air Guard Base as well as Homestead Air Force Base and Nellis Air Force Base. And one of the things about being in the military, and we have a lot of military members in our area, integrity. And I've always focused on that. And I'm proud to be a veteran, and I'm not going to go mudslinging through the election. I know Jim very well, and we know each other very well. And it'll be an interesting race. We both bring two different perspectives. It'll be a choice the voters will make next November.
We'll look forward to having both of you in here.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll bring the issues up and let you guys discuss them here on WBCK. Dave Morgan, thanks for being our guest today.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yep, Happy New Year to you. Stay warm, for heaven's sakes.